This is the 212th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the third week of April 2015. This episode is titled NGO Disconnect. CloudFocus Weekly is brought to you by Clone This User. Clone an existing Salesforce user with a click of a button via the desktop or in Salesforce One Mobile. Available for free on the App Exchange or clonethisuser.com. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and joining me is co-host, wincing at the title, Justin Edelstein, calling you out so quickly. How you doing, buddy?
I was actually going to say Clone This User recently blogged about on the Salesforce Hacker blog.
Oh, he did?
It is up and running. You can check out the post from literally today, April 17th. From Salesforce Hacker, otherwise known as Adam Torman, who wrote a blog post all about Clone This User. Yeah, really good. Really good.
He was emailing us the other day about a question, like if we covered some scenario about permission set licenses, and
right,
we did. Apparently, we covered the scenario.
We covered it.
We basically didn't do it if it didn't work, or did we?
No, it's if it can be assigned, then it gets assigned. If it can't, then it can't. It's basically based on the number of licenses
left
available in the org.
Right.
If it can be assigned, it assigns it. If it cannot, based on the rules of the road from Salesforce, then it doesn't.
Right. That sounds like a good rule of the road. All right, so we have an agenda. A rather big one, so we're going to have to see if we can not make this into a 3-hour tour. Sit right back, listen here, tell you a tale. Gilligan's Island? No?
I am too young for that.
You're a millennial.
I can honestly say I've never seen an episode of Gilligan's Island.
Oh, I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. That's terrible.
Sorry.
The Professor? Gilligan?
I know the names. Gilligan, Ginger, the Professor.
And Marianne.
And her.
Were you a Ginger or Marianne?
I don't know what they look like.
Oh, I just threw up my mouth again.
I really don't.
That's terrible.
I have no clue. I really have no idea.
That's really terrible.
Sorry.
That's terrible. All right, so we have...
Was Ginger redheaded?
Yes, Ginger.
Is that where that came from?
I don't know. I think that's a longer standing thing.
Do you think they called her Ginger because she was redheaded?
Yes.
And not now we call redheaded people Gingers?
Are you trying to avoid the agenda?
I'm trying to babble a little bit.
Oh.
People like the banter.
The babble?
I think people like the banter. I think they also want the podcast to be closer to 30 minutes than an hour, so maybe we should get going.
All right. So we have 2 blog posts we're talking about quickly because they're both very self-explanatory. You threw on here the new Trust site preview.
I did.
We're going to talk about NGO Connect as we promise, and we're going to do this in the very... the age-old style where one of us interviews the other.
Who's interviewing who?
I'm interviewing you.
Oh, why?
Because you know more about it than I do.
I should be interviewing you.
It's not going to get a lot out of me in that one.
Good enough.
No. And then we'll talk maybe a little bit about Apple Watch, and then
Why don't we just wait on the Apple Watch? We have no idea what it is.
Right. Well, no, because we have lots to talk about. But all right, we'll do that for next time. Apple Watch, next time. I've already moved it to the next time on. And then I threw in some other stuff in here that we can talk about next time. Then we'll do a CloudFocus app pick of the week. I'm extremely excited. It might take me 35 minutes to talk about my pick of the week.
That's not acceptable.
I think I'm going to make you spend money.
Oh, I hate when you do.
Yeah, I know. All right, so let's get to our first 2 blog posts.
Okay.
First up, in order of publishing date, is Sales Mastery Through Habit. This is by the partner who shall never be named.
The Maester.
And
the Sales Maester. Could we call him the Grand Maester of Sales?
Grand Maester of Sales. He's the Grand Poobah.
Sorry, Game of Thrones is back. So
yes,
I'm
not watching it because I'm
you
waiting.
should still know the word Maester.
I do know Maester. So this is an interesting one because there's different tracks, and we have sort of a productivity track on the blog. We have some other tracks. This track is sort of a sales and productivity. And it's interesting because he talks about, he's using a couple of theories from a couple different books, but he talks about using sales methodologies and tasking and Salesforce as a way of building in habit to increase sales or help salespeople be better at their job, which is basically as much as I'm going to say about it, because I think it really needs to be read.
It needs to be read.
It's not a talk about.
It's a must-read.
It's a must-read.
So what we call a must-read.
Yeah, I had this as he showed me the preview of this, and before he even started really writing, he gave me little hints, and I'm like, ooh, and I said, well, I think here's what you should. He had a lot of explaining things first. I said, you should just get to it, put it in the middle. So he did that, and it sounds good. So go read that. That's on blog.arkusinc.com. You can go read that. Next up on the blog, another one that I think has a lot of self-explanatory is loading data with special characters.
Yeah.
So
foreign language
Yes.
things, apostrophes, colons, semicolons, all sorts of weird, funky characters that get caught up in CSV land.
yes,
It's kind of a step-by-step guide on how to load data that has a bunch of special characters
Right.
through, just using standard data
Special
loading.
characters.
Special through just using standard data loaders as opposed to having to have something that can script those out or clean them up on the way in.
And this is another of our blog posts that has a lot of, although I am seeing some stuff in here I'd like to take out.
A lot of
Has
what?
a lot of screenshots.
Oh.
Some of the screenshots are a little whatever.
Little what? Well, let's not talk about it.
Yeah, look at the
Let's
third,
just delete
look at the third
let's
one
just delete-
down.
Well, let's just delete them.
Or
Third
the
one down.
Second to last.
Second
Oh,
to
no,
last.
no.
I don't know what your Oh yeah, there's in there that
Yeah.
shouldn't be in
That
there.
shouldn't
Let's
be
get
there.
rid of that.
We gotta get rid of that.
Let's do that.
You'll
now.
take that down. Capture
I'm not gonna do it right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell the person who did it
Yes.
to redo it.
Do it. You do that. All right. So those are two. Those are two good, but they're again not really. They're really read it. One's a read it and reflect, and one's a read it and learn it or bookmark it. So if you need to get back to it someday, do that. Next up, because we're trying to get to the main event here, is the. Apparently, you just put this on 4 minutes before we started the podcast. Is the Salesforce Trust, the new site, which I've never seen before, so I'm looking at it for the first time.
Oh, good for you. Me too. I looked at it for the first time this morning because I was looking at Trust because our instance was acting up a little, so I was wondering if there was an issue with NA8. There wasn't, and then all of a sudden, magically, everything was working fine.
So it's the differences are instead of having green checky boxes, you have big green lines, but it's a little bit more for the days you can see when things were down. So like you click on it and it's like an hour. You can see things are down for a little bit. And I like it's nice. It's nice. It gives a little bit. I mean, it's the same information, but it's just I guess it has everything in there. And then it has the history here. So that's nice. I don't see anything else different with it, really. It's just a look and feel. But that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and you can
looks a
star
little
things.
nicer. You could always do that. What I'm doing right now is sort of flipping over to show you that I think the big deal is that it is optimized for the mobile.
It's optimized for mobile, unlike our website.
Unlike the Arkus Inc. website, this website is completely optimized for the mobile.
Nice.
Which is obviously the way that everything is going these days.
Oh, and the daily transaction count. There's some nice
It's
graphy
for
graphs.
the most part the same information. You can go back and forth in the history of time. You can drill into your particular pod. So if you clicked on NA8, for example, you will see a maintenance calendar for that specific pod. So we can see on the May 17th, there is scheduled maintenance.
Oh, I like that. That's good
so
too.
there's a calendar view and a list view. There's some nice stuff in here. It's very
That's good.
nice.
Well done. I like this.
It is well done. They kept the RSS feed too, which I find a little surprising.
But they're
all
changing
right.
them.
They're changing RSS feeds.
Well, they're changing because I know that's one of the things they said that the old Trust RSS feed is not going to work. You have to go resubscribe to this one. I do not subscribe. I mean, I love RSS.
/rest/RSS/NA8.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Interesting. Very cool. I like it.
RSS is the future of the internet.
It is not. Remember when we talked to that vendor?
Totally
Like
missed
the
that.
whole world was like, "This is all about everything's going to be about RSS."
Yeah, you know what they missed? They should have just said feeds and not said RSS. Because I think
Yes.
feeds would have been a way more accurate statement.
Well, you know what I think the future of the world's about? Computers.
Computers.
That's my prediction. Computers.
I'm going to add
microchips.
futurist to my title on LinkedIn. Someone tried to link in with me. If you're listening and I don't remember your name, I'm sorry if this is how you know me. But if you try to link in with me and in your title it says entrepreneur/futurist, I'm not accepting your
Why?
invitation.
That person could know the future.
Futurist. What does that mean?
You mean do you know the future?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. You're
Is
about the future.
there a Wikipedia article on
futurist?
futurist?
I don't know.
I wonder. but I'm just not about it. Oh my goodness, there is a futurist.
course.
Futurists or futurologists are scientists and social scientists whose specialty is futurology, or the attempt to systematically explore predictions and possibilities about the future and how they can emerge from the present, whether that of human society in particular or of life in general.
What I love about what scientist is one thing. You know what a social scientist is?
Please tell me.
A scientist who didn't have to go to college.
Or
Because you're a social scientist.
they went to college. They just studied different things.
Like a scientist has to go to college or go to, become a doctor, become a scientist. But a social scientist, like, yeah, I'm a social scientist.
Sure.
I'm social.
Sure.
And there's some science.
And science.
Aliens.
Right.
All right. So let's get on to our
One-way ticket to Mars.
the meat of our greet. We're now 10 minutes into the podcast, so we can have at least some time. So I want to, this has been banging around in our heads for a while, and I first want to do a little disclaimerage.
Disclaimer it.
Yeah, I'm going to disclaimerage. One is, while Jason, myself, I guess I was third person.
Well, me, myself, and I.
While Justin and I are long-standing Salesforce users who know a lot.
Well, speak for yourself.
We don't know everything.
We don't.
And there's lots of stuff we don't know about Salesforce and all of its interworkings.
Especially recently. They just keep throwing things at you.
It's hard to keep up. And while we are partners of Salesforce, currently, we own and run a firm that does nothing but Salesforce consulting, and we are...
And does podcasts. That's all we do.
That's all we do.
Salesforce consulting,
and
podcasts,
and blogging.
And blogging.
It's like 90% podcasts, like 10%,
We're basically,
or 9% blogging, and then 1%
basically
Salesforce
like,
consulting.
mobile and social.
We're social, mobile. We also are users, and we are users of Salesforce and customers of Salesforce, and have been for a very long time. Well, the reason I'm getting to this is, mostly if you listen to this podcast, you would have you would think that we were what is called in the Apple world as a fanboy, which I am definitely a fanboy, which is someone who kind of like can't see any of the flaws that are out there, and kind of always thinks that whatever they do is great, right? So people have maybe labeled us Salesforce fanboys.
We're totally Salesforce fanboys, and you're absolutely an Apple fanboy.
Oh yeah, I'm an absolutely.
I mean, if Apple put out a box with nothing in it but Apple Air, you would so buy Apple
I'm also
Air.
a social fanboy.
You're a social science Apple fanboy?
But here's what I'm trying to get to. There are times in our lives when we're also realists, and we're also
Futurists.
And we're also not afraid to sometimes call it like we see it. And I want to point that out as we see it. We might be dead on wrong, but this is the way we see things. And I know that's a lot of disclaimerage, because what we're about to talk about is something we're not
a lot of hedging.
We're not kind of happy with, and we're not really liking of the way it is now. In the future, we're going to talk about that as well. So here's how we're going to handle this, because this is tricky. Like when Salesforce puts out great products, we go, greatest thing ever, the new trust. But when Salesforce is involved in or is connected to something that we're not as excited about, I think we owe it to our listening audience to not either ignore the topic, which is one way to do it. We could just ignore the topic, or to not discuss it, all right, or not to say what we feel. So I'm going to use that. That's my platform for starting off this conversation. So also, just as a background, both you and I have gone to an NGO Connect workshop, a 2-day boot camp,
enablement boot camp.
And then you have much more, which I'm going to question you about as we go through the sort of the question and answer here.
I hope I can answer everything. If I can't, I'll just say I can't.
Right. So, I'm sure you can. But that's where our sort of expertise comes into this thing. So let's go. I'm going to play the interviewer. You're going to be the interviewee.
Oh, how the tides have turned.
Yes, they have turned.
I'm usually the one who's doing the question.
That's why we get into that. Okay. So, Justin, nice to see you here today.
Jason, hi.
Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome. First time on the podcast?
A little nervous.
A little nervous? Take a sip of water. It's going to be okay.
Okay.
Relax. Not the whole fist. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, first of all, explain to me what NGO Connect is?
Sure. So NGO Connect is a series of packages that creates in totality a product that is built on the Salesforce platform. Salesforce One, Salesforce, Force.com, whatever you feel comfortable talking about it in those terms, it sits on the platform. It's a series of packages that make up actually a series of separate products. So, the two that I would say are like the big ones are NGO Connect BIOS and NGO Connect.
Okay.
Proper.
Let me back you up a little bit.
Well, I'm going to get there.
Okay. All right, you get there.
So it's meant for higher end enterprise level or enterprise class constituent and donation management for nonprofits, hence the name NGO Connect, the connected NGO.
So for those who don't know, and I'm gonna do a little bit of ground laying here.
Okay.
Salesforce offers free licenses as part of a grant program, as part of their Salesforce Foundation.
So not the question you asked me.
No, I know, but because I'm getting there in a weird way. So that as nonprofits get discounts and they get 10 free licenses if they're 501c3 to Salesforce as part of the foundation, as part of the 111 program. But they also have helped foster another thing called the Nonprofit Starter Pack.
Correct.
Which we have blogged about and talked about in the past.
Yes, we have.
But first thing I was say, so I'm going to play, it's not going to be hard, but I'm going to play dumb.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like what the Nonprofit Starter Pack is. Can you explain a little bit what the Nonprofit Starter Pack is and what the differences are?
Sure. So the Nonprofit Starter Pack, and the reason why I emphasize the word starter is because that's precisely what it is. It's a good start. It's a good head start on taking Salesforce as a traditionally B2B sales tool and rewording and adding some additional functionality into Salesforce to turn it more into what is typically I'm going to use B2C as the model for fundraising, right? You're doing B2B work. Again, to translate, you're fundraising against a corporation or a foundation or a government organization or some organization, but you're also collecting individual gifts, donations. Like it could be $5, $10, $20, could be peer-to-peer stuff, what have you. So they've taken in the starter pack Salesforce and reworked it a little bit to handle, individuals, households, things of that nature, salutations for writing thank you letters or tax letters, reworded or taken the opportunity object and sort of turned it into a donation object, how to collect payments for things that are more either grant-like or pledge-like, where I'm going to pay you over the course of time, how to actually book that in your general ledger, which fiscal year, so on and so forth. And it allows you to continue to build on top of the Nonprofit Starter Pack and add additional things that you may need over the course of time. But it essentially gets you from 0 to somewhere if you wanted to get off the ground and get off your Excel spreadsheets. Or, I've seen organizations track things in Microsoft Word, or somebody built an Access database 10 years ago or whatever.
Right.
This is for small organizations who just want to get onto this enterprise platform in Salesforce, but not necessarily have all the bells and whistles that some of the competitors out there would have as they're selling their own fundraising packages.
Like what? Give me some competitors.
Well, Blackbaud's the big one.
Okay, so Blackbaud sells packages and they're a dirt.
They're two. Well, they bought Convio.
Right.
Convio used to be a standalone, and they had Convio, and then they had Convio Common Ground, which was built on top of Force.com, and then Blackbaud bought Convio to get into more of the cloud space. They were very much like, if you look at Blackbaud, which is Razor's Edge and Financial Edge, and they integrate really well. It looks like an old VB app. That's what it is essentially. Convio is more web forward thinking, online donations, peer-to-peer stuff,
right,
mass emailing, things of that nature. So they took the product and sort of turned it into Luminate, which is another Force.com fundraising application that you can buy from Blackbaud.
Okay. And so let's get some pricing in here. So how much does Nonprofit Starter Pack cost?
Free.
Okay. And you said Illuminate, which is the...
Don't know the cost.
No, I know.
I didn't do any research. It's money.
So where does NGO Connect fit into this?
Somewhere closer to Illuminate.
So it's a pay product.
Oh, yeah, it's a pay product. And that's where I was going with. It has two flavors. There's BIOS, which is the like base package, which essentially handles contacts. So it handles the account contact data model. And it does sort of take the account contact data model and add things to it to handle addresses, preferences, and we'll get into what some of those things are, constituent types, things of that nature. Then there's the Connect, which is what handles like the giving aspect. That's when opportunities come into play, as well as a whole slew of other things related to giving. And Connect, which enables sort of the online stuff. So online event reg, online donation forms, all hosted, all native on Salesforce. So basically using Force.com sites to put out web pages that people can register for things or create donations online, put their credit card in, goes through a payment processor, can set up recurring stuff, all that fun stuff that people like. Even integrates with Stay Classy for peer-to-peer, which is pretty interesting because people like doing peer-to-peer and not much integrates with Salesforce from that perspective.
And when we talk peer-to-peer, we're talking about...
you go run the marathon, you stand up your own page,
right? People
donate, they say, hey, you're running a marathon, I'll give you $50, that's cool. That kind of stuff.
And where did NGO Connect come from? Did Salesforce build it? And what's its connection with Salesforce now?
So, good question. A company called Round Corner built NGO Connect. There's also another flavor called NGO Advance or Advancement or something along those lines. That's for higher education. Round Corner built it. Round Corner was doing the services around it, was doing all the sales around it until they struck a deal with Salesforce, and it is now rebranded as Salesforce NGO Connect. It used to be called Round Cause. So Round Corner created Round Cause. Round Cause turned into NGO Connect from the Salesforce Foundation. Salesforce Foundation sells it. Salesforce Foundation supports it. Salesforce Foundation does not build it.
Does not develop it.
Does not develop it.
So Salesforce itself is not the developer behind it.
Correct.
So can you think of, and I'm racking my, can you think of another product that Salesforce sells that has this type of relationship with Salesforce?
No. I can think of products that they've bought, tons of them, that they then take over, like Data.com and Live Agent and things like that. I cannot think of another product that Salesforce themselves sell, Exact Target being another one, right? They could have very easily said, we're going to sell Exact Target.
Right.
But instead, they bought them and turned it into the Marketing Cloud. I cannot think of another product like this that somebody else develops on the Force.com or Salesforce One platform. I'm going to continue to...
Just use Force.com. I'll be okay with
that. That they're responsible for selling / supporting, but not responsible for actually building.
So it's a strange... I mean, that alone for someone who's a Salesforce...
It's supposed to be seamless. I mean, we're partners. We're a little behind the scenes a little bit. I think to the consumer or the customer, it's supposed to appear as though this is full-on Salesforce. You're not supposed to know Round Corner really exists.
Right.
People do.
So tell me some of the things. So you've been involved. We went and had the boot camp. So we both experienced it, installed it, played with it, whatever. You've now been much more involved in little iterations of it and are currently in the middle of an implementation.
Yep.
give me some of the things that you like, some of the big things that you've learned that are sort of good. Like, give me some pros on the pro side of things.
Okay. I think that they thought through really deep problems that bigger fundraising organizations have that you just wouldn't be able to solve with a nonprofit starter pack, almost to the point of over engineering for every little thing. But they've thought about quite a bit around just fundraising processes in general and how users want to interface with an application. So I know in our experience with Nonprofit Starter Pack, people used to hate the fact that they would have to create an account to then create contacts and things like that. You know, they have a lot of visual force pages, tons and tons of visual force pages. As a matter of fact, most data entered through the user interface is entered through visual force pages. A lot of manage buttons, so like manage this account or this organization, as opposed to edit. The edit button is not there.
Right.
Manage these relationships, manage these preferences, so on and so forth. I think in a sense that's a pro for people who are not used to using Salesforce. So anyone who comes into it fresh and has never seen Salesforce, well, when you enter an opportunity and then you need to enter in all the transactions related to that opportunity and all the different, you know, special allocations that money has to be allocated around, and which campaign is it associated to, and that's how people think, right? This is a campaign. Salesforce doesn't really enforce that, but NGO Connect does. Says, yeah, you fundraise against campaigns, and that's how people generally think about it. What payment method are they using? All that stuff. If you were doing it in Salesforce, would be a lot of different places to, like a lot of different related lists, a lot of different places to enter data. They've created wizard-based data entry and data transformations through the visual force pages.
Okay.
So a lot of the, you know, managing addresses, while a little bit of a pain because again, I have to take myself out of like being a Salesforce user because I just want to edit the record and put someone's address on the page. In this case, they've created what I would say a pro and a con. A pro, you can manage tons of addresses. So you can have a different address for different seasons. And when you're dealing with big board members who are CEOs of big companies, well, maybe during the month of August, they spend their time on their island or whatever.
That's where I spend my time.
You want to send them a piece of mail, that's where they get it. So they've added the ability to do all of those things, and essentially the addresses sort of flip on the contact, but you have to manage them through this interface. For me, it's a little weird because I'm just like edit contact, add a new address. That sort of screws things up. You want to manage things through this address module. The pro is pretty flexible in terms of managing addresses.
Right.
The con is a little weird for someone who's a Salesforce user and used to doing something a certain way.
Right.
So again, it's very much a product built on this platform. You kind of have to take yourself out of Salesforce and put yourself into, this is NGO Connect.
Right.
Right. This is how they do things. Some interesting ways of managing people's preferences for things. It's this very amorphous object that can be used for so many different reasons or preferences, essentially. Like, opt me into this type of mailing, but opt me out of all the rest of these email, but I want these snail mailed.
Right.
Interests and things like that are captured there. So they're interested in golf or what have you, or they're a Yankee fan, so take them to the Yankee game. Really nice, flexible object. There's an inline visual force page that allows you to see all this stuff. Very nice. Pro. Con. Some of this stuff has to do with how you communicate with people, preferences for communications. So this is where it gets a little murky is, when you're Salesforce and you're selling NGO Connect as a Salesforce product, and then the organization wants to go to the next level and says, all right, I'm ready to do some marketing here.
Right.
and
Give me some exact
give me
target.
some exact target Marketing Cloud love. These things should work really well together. They kind of don't, because Marketing Cloud has its own preferences center where you can unsubscribe and subscribe to certain types of appeals or what have you, and that doesn't sync or integrate with the preferences object where that stuff is stored in NGO Connect. It's kind of a big problem, actually, if you ask me, because it's like,
Well, good thing I am asking you.
well, it's like, you run your reports and you filter people out based on their preferences, or you add people in based on their preferences, but then they've already opted out on the exact target side and you don't know.
Right.
So it's like, oh, they said that they don't want this, or they said that they do want this, but my preference data is stale.
Right.
Kind of a wonky thing, because these are Salesforce products. They should work together.
Okay.
That's where the thing is. It's like, this is a Salesforce product. It should work like Salesforce. It's not.
It's not working like Salesforce, or it is
Correct.
not a Salesforce product.
It is a Salesforce product, technically sold by Salesforce.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really work like Salesforce. So when you say 3 upgrades a year and you're talking about Salesforce, you get 3 upgrades a year. You don't really have to do too much. As a matter of fact, sometimes you have to do nothing.
Right.
And you just get the upgrade and it just happens. And it's like, ooh, new stuff. And you either turn it on or you don't. Sometimes it's turned on for you and it's like, great. With NGO Connect, these are a series of managed packages. So
take a second.
I'll take a second. Go ahead.
Take a second and lead us through, because I think for the people who may be listening to this or are not deep in the development world or whatever, give me a high level on what a managed and then what an unmanaged package is, and,
Sure.
and what are the differences of those.
So a managed package is so both are installed from the App Exchange. Let's
Okay.
just start there as a baseline. Let's go unmanaged first. Unmanaged packages on the App Exchange, you install it, and it's essentially open source. All the code is there. It's in your org. It's now yours. The publisher has no ability to really control it at that point. They can't do any patch upgrades or anything like that to it. It's yours. You own it. If there's bugs in it or whatever, it's like, all right, reinstall. Here's the new package, reinstall. Or, fix it yourself. You install at your own risk, kind of thing.
So a lot of the
The Force.com lab stuff is unmanaged. And it's like that for a purpose. They're meant to be like templates or used for certain things with like a buyer beware sticker on it.
But they're also extensible. That's
Very
the point,
extensible.
because you can touch
have
the code.
Right. And unmanaged packages could also be extensible if they're documented really well. But we'll get to that in a minute. So this is a series of managed packages. And the pro of a managed package is that you don't have to worry about it, right? It doesn't.
So I still install it from the App Exchange.
You still have to install it from not really the App Exchange, but like a private area.
No, but we have.
If you want to install, would you start this one off with? Clone this user. If you want to install Clone this user, you go to the App Exchange, you install it. It's managed. You're not seeing our code, but it's there. Good part about that is, if we wrote crappy test classes, it's not going to count against your issue. If you want to deploy something from Sandbox, it's not going to count. Our tests won't run against your org, that kind of stuff.
Right.
We can also push minor changes to the application out to our user base. Can't push major stuff, minor stuff. Like can't add an object, can't add new.
But I can change the code.
Can change the code.
So
yes.
I want that to be a very clear understanding too, because I don't think people really get that. Is that a managed package means that the publisher of it manages the code and can, without you knowing.
Yes, and we've done it.
Yes, we've done it.
We've done it many times because you have a bug, you got to push something out.
CloneThisUser.com.
Well, Clone This User's actually never been patched. It's still 1.0.
Right. Well, I'm saying, I'm just making a
the
joke.
The permissioner, on the other hand, has been patched.
And so has
the other one, Compliance Logger, has been patched a bunch of times.
But the point is that as the developer of it and as the manager of that package, I can push code into your orgs.
Correct. Tested, or not,
or not,
or not.
So managed packages. So
it's a series of them. There's about 7 of them.
Right.
Each one have their own licenses associated. So you have to grant those licenses to the users that are going to use it. So
now we're talking back to NGO Connect.
Yeah, so NGO Connect. So some users of the org could be just BIOS users. They just need account contact and biographical information, that kind of stuff. And others can be full-on Giving Connect, work with the Giving, which is essentially opportunities,
right?
Renamed Giving. They do some interesting stuff with that, by the way, like how they handle giving records versus transaction records. This is other stuff to think about. They do duplicate a lot of data across the system to make it work. So addresses are duplicated and potentially even triplicate. So like 3 records for what should essentially be 1. Donations the same. There's a big overarching opportunity record, and then there's a transaction record to draw down that opportunity. So $100 donation, $100 transaction record. It says here's the payment, essentially. Right. Anyway, back to the packaging. So in the real world of Salesforce, you get summer 15, release date comes around, it's well known, it's known months in advance or 2 months in advance. Pre-release notes are out there, sandbox upgrades, pre-release orgs. Have a ball. Play around, test your integrations, test your apps, all that stuff.
And now is when I bring up Spring 14, just want to say.
Spring 14.
Yeah.
With NGO Connect, a little different. These are a series of managed packages. So if you want to get from what we're currently on, which is winter 14 or winter 15, whatever, winter, to spring, which will be released in some time, you have to go through and walk through the upgrade steps to get to the next series of packages. You have to install the packages that are upgraded. Sure, and if you skip a release, you kind of have to double your work because you can't go from like winter to summer, for example.
Well, so what I and that's a very interesting point. What I don't think a lot of people get about managed packages, and or I think one of the more definitely in the con category on NGO Connect is that there is a feeling that once you're on the platform, once you're on Salesforce, that everything is this easy upgrade path, right? No more upgrades. It's no software. It's whatever.
Totally sold that way.
Yeah, it is, but in reality, a managed package is almost, I don't want to say as bad because there's lots of pros to it, but it is almost as bad as installing something on your computer.
It is a version of software.
It is a version of software, and they don't auto upgrade, and they don't keep up with the stuff.
Two years ago, I'm sorry, I cut you off. 2 years ago or so, there was like a push major, or patch major, pilot maybe. We were looking into it as App Exchange partners, and I don't think it's ever actually come to fruition where you can really deploy and push a major upgrade.
Right.
Meaning, delete a bunch of stuff that's deprecated. You'll see all over the NGO Connect package, they've been upgrading this thing over time, and there's tons of stuff that's just labeled deprecated.
Right.
Like, just don't touch it. Tons of like custom labels and custom settings, and just tons and tons of stuff that is just deprecated across the board, which you have to do in this managed package world.
Right. So give me some other, and I totally get you. Give me some other cons.
I don't think that there's great documentation around the product when you compare it again to Salesforce, which is how I'm going to compare this. Salesforce comes out with a new release and there's 300 pages of notes, and those live on and they get updated over time to be living documents. NGO Connect is trying, to their credit. They have a wiki for partners, and then they have some customer-facing documentation as well as partner-facing documentation. But it's not, I won't even say it's good. I'm actually going to have to just say it's bad.
It's bad documentation.
It's bad documentation.
No documentation is worse, or is bad documentation is worse than no documentation.
It's better than no documentation.
Oh, okay.
I'll put it there. Definitely better than nothing. But it's riddled with, issues because things get updated over time, and it's like, well, which release are you on? And it's hard.
Right.
Being on one release is way easier to have documentation for than having to document across many releases.
Right.
So it's hard to keep up. you'll find tons of old stuff mixed with new stuff. There'll be features that are totally not explained at all, like big features that need many pages of documentation are just left out,
not explained
completely, not explained. So it's just it's an interesting world, this NGO Connect, and a lot of people will say, you know, it's the future, like invest in the future, and I kind of look at it like, I agree, it's the future. We can all say, you know, this is, you know, Salesforce for nonprofits circa, you know, what Salesforce is today 8-10 years ago, right? So if you were to say to me like, hey, wouldn't you have loved to have been in on Salesforce like 10 years ago?
I was.
Right.
Sorry.
But actually, you know what? If you were to say, wouldn't you have liked your org to have been spun up 10 years ago? I'm not sure I would say yes, to be quite honest with you, because we'd probably have done some stuff really dumb and then not continued to make it like stay up with the times.
Well, we have customers who have orgs that are 9-8 years old, and I'll tell you, they struggle with this stuff. They struggle with things they installed 9-10 years ago or 7 years ago that don't work,
right,
that can't be uninstalled, that, you know, are not
just legacy.
So
it gets worse though when you're talking about managed packages, because really all it is a version of software. The platform's going to keep going, and
right,
that's Salesforce, standalone, separate from NGO Connect. So if you want to say you want to invest in Salesforce, good, great. If you want to invest in NGO Connect, it's not like investing in NGO Connect today is going to make your life any better a year from now, because it's 3 packages from now.
Right.
3 distinct packages with 3 upgrade paths that you need to do and test and make sure everything works.
And it's not just 3; it's 3 times 7.
What's the times 7?
Well, you could do 7 packages.
Oh yeah, all those packages. Yeah. So it's a lot of work actually. It's not seamless to just say like, oh, I'm investing in the future now, when, you know, verdict, I'm not 100% sure it's like ready right now. And
it's something we've seen. There are other vendors who I will not mention because they're not as close to, you know, this. But it's one of the reasons that we as a services company have kind of stayed away from productizing things, is because the world of managed packages and software in Salesforce is difficult. It's a difficult world to deal in. It's a difficult world to keep up with. And even in little simple things that we've done, like Compliance Locker, our first managed package, there's still things in it that I can't believe we can't change. Like we made choices, and I'm not going to label them mistakes, but they were mistakes, and we can't even change them. Like we can't go back and do anything with it because it's stuck in this managed package, which we somehow can put in things, and some things cannot. So I'll tell you from my own experience, I don't have as much experience with NGO Connect. I did the boot camp, which I spent 2 days actually, you know, installing and playing with it. I came away with the feeling that it was, I'm trying to figure out the words. I was finding a lot of bugs, and I don't mind finding bugs. I mean, I test my own software, and I've written software, and I've been a programmer, and so I know that stuff happens. But it felt very like, wow, I'm surprised that I'm sitting here and just finding bugs randomly. And not one, but multiple over a 2-day period. I found that kind of disconcerting. I'm also, while I know that there are limitations in the Salesforce UI, I'm also a believer in user interface parity. And that when you start to overtake one part of the application with a different user face, it makes the overall use of Salesforce more difficult as you bounce from user. One of the things I love to explain to people when I train them on Salesforce is when you land on a lead and you click on the edit button, and there's lists, there's, you know, views, and there's lists, and there's fields, and they're in 2 columns, and, you know, and then you go to a contact, you don't have to relearn what you just learned. Right. Oh, first name, last name.
Well, this really causes you to relearn patterns. So that's like, I'll go with this as kind of another little side note. You know, some of the inline editing you can't do. So you land on a record, it's inline editable. You land on another record, it's not. You're like, why?
Right.
Well, because you can't for this particular record. Some places you edit things, other places you manage things. And the rule of thumb is if there's a manage button, use the manage button. That's it.
Right.
And the last thing I'll say is if you've got an org that's 2 or 3 years old and you're running your program in this org that's 2 or 3 years old. You've been running your program. You say, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this Razor's Edge on-premise nonsense. Can't use it on a mobile. Can't use it from anywhere. These are all pros, by the way, of NGO Connect.
Well, inherits a lot of Salesforce's beauty.
The platform, right? It's mobile. It
social?
Is social. It is collaborative. So on and so forth. Have fun getting it into that org. That's almost impossible. Wow. We were pretty much told, don't do that. Like, just spin up another org with NGO Connect in it, and then either move everything in, which have fun with that, or run them separately, again, have fun with that.
There were a couple draw droppers when we were asking questions, and the one where I was like, so what happens if, someone's got an old org and, they have, let's say 300 people in their org, and they want to use NGO Connect, and they want to install it for 20, 30 people. And their answer was, boot up new org, move 300 for 20. I was like, that to me seems like now their answer is probably have 320 live in separate orgs. But as we know, as you Salesforce people out there know, that's like being at two different companies. There's no interconnection of those two things. So I struggled with that even. I thought that was a very really bad answer. It just felt like, wow, that's putting a lot of people. So as a net new, right? There's some value. If you need to look at it deeper and look at it more carefully if you are someone who wants to add it on to something, or because there also is no migration path from nonprofit starter pack. If you're a nonprofit starter pack user, it's start again.
Yeah,
move data.
The data migration is tricky. Mostly
call it difficult.
Address stuff is tricky.
Because everything's in these little objects.
Well, everything's in these objects, and there's a bunch of address objects, and they're joined in weird ways, and the data wants to be entered through the UI. The visual force pages are what take care of the calling into the classes and putting the data where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So when you're doing the data loading, you can't really rely on NGO Connect to do those quote-unquote transformations for you. You kind of have to load stuff in all the different places it needs to be and make sure it's correct, and then turn the triggers and such back on.
Right.
So you sort of have to turn a lot of functionality off, load data, turn functionality back on.
Right.
Whereas you'd really just like to throw stuff in through the API and let it just handle it.
Right.
That's not really the case.
Right.
So, all the code is, a good thing, right? All the code is sort of called through these visual force pages, but again, for data migrations, it's a task.
Right. And it kind of reminded me, so to me, and we'll get off of it and wrap up our conversation, but to me it looked like what it was which is a series of sort of fixes or products to sort of sell. It's like, oh, we got this module, this module, this module. And where I've seen this before in other people's managed packages, that you kind of look at it and you think, this is from a history of something, but if you were to rewrite this today, you would not write it this way. Meaning you're caught with your own legacy pants down.
That's an absolute fact.
Right. Because it is written in a way that wasn't really thought about well at the beginning. And that's sort of my major concern is that
Can I interject there? I don't agree with that statement per se. I don't think that it's well thought about from the beginning. I don't think that should be the statement. I think it's just hard to use Salesforce as your platform.
And to write software for it.
Because you are pushed into a choice because of the platform you're building on,
right,
which then is evolving so fast that you either wait forever or you just go with what you got.
Well, and has so many limitations. I mean, I think that's one of the things we don't talk about a lot. We've made references to it, but managed packages have a lot of limitations to them. And so what NGO Connect is, and even Conus User and Permissioner, they're ways to get around the limitations. Like if I were just going to go write Java code to do something, I would write it in a totally different way than if I would write something for for Salesforce. Now, you gain all the stuff that you gain off of Salesforce, the platform, the scalability, blah, blah, blah. But there are tons and tons and tons of limitations that they throw on top of you that when you're trying to write something not as simple as our little free apps, when you're trying to write real enterprise-class software on top of real enterprise-class software that has tons of limitations and quirks and things, like you get caught in these games. And I've seen more than one vendor. I've seen 3 that sell some pretty big software out there. They're caught in this world of have to work around the limitations, the packaging, the release schedule. It's not an easy thing. So I think part of my, I almost feel sorry for anybody who's doing it this way. And we have actually vendors or application developers who one of their ways to get around it is to not do managed package. They just make you sign a big contract that says you can see our code, but if you ever use it, we'll sue you.
You ever resell it, right? You're done.
And because of the issue, they're like, well, because we don't want to deal with this managed package issue because it's a lot to deal with. So I think that's part of it. So I actually employ, and I know that Salesforce is working on it, Safe Harbor. I know that they know that it's an issue. It's something that is not really talked about a lot, is that the world of enterprise, if Salesforce wants to be where the vision is, which is that they are the epicenter of enterprise class software, and that you can install the health module, the HR module, the NGO Connect, the whatever, and it's your platform that you then use to build out your enterprise software. They have a ways to go, because right now managed packages have a lot of broken stuff in them that keep you bottled up. And what you end up doing is sort of, I don't want to call them hacks, but they're hacks to get around. And, a lot of them are evident in this software and others. So anyway, thank you, Justin. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I had in here lessons learned, but I guess we'll leave that for another time. So again, I think it was good for us to have a candid conversation. It's not full of a lot of, flowery goodness, but sometimes that's what we do. Next time, we're going to have lots of flowery goodness with the Apple Watch. We'll have a new blog post coming up. Do you know who's writing it for this one?
Nope. Actually, I do. It's formula. It's about formulas.
Ooh, formulas. And then I was thinking about doing this. What do you think about this idea?
Yeah.
This is I'm calling this the app pick update. So you don't have to go back through every app pick, but you have to pick 5 apps that you've picked in the last 6 months, year, 10 years, whatever. Basically ones that you've picked and you are still you love, that you use every day.
I don't really pick many that I even use, so that's going to be tough for me.
Well, good job.
All right.
Because I feel like there's stuff that I picked and I almost want to repick, but I shouldn't repick it because
you shouldn't.
But I love it. And I really want people to know about it, or it's changed. So I want to give here's 5 apps that I've talked about that I'm even more in love with than I was when I picked it.
Great.
Okay. Cool. So
All
what's
right.
your pick of the week that you have not ever used?
I have used. This is an iOS app called Ionic View.
I'm going to take a look now.
So we have been playing around with the Ionic framework for building mobile applications connecting to Salesforce as the back end. So this would be like a consumer mobile app that would be available cross-platform on iOS, Android, potentially Windows Phone. And we've built out an Ionic app within the framework. The framework handles a lot of creating the hybrid app, if you will, right? You handle the UI layer within the framework, and then it handles sort of the connections to the phone itself. So you're building within a framework using Cordova and using Angular and things of that nature.
You're so techie. All this is,
anyway,
it takes the world of HTML apps,
makes it nice and easy for a phone
that then can talk to phone features like location and
beautiful
camera and things like that.
Anyway, so at the point when we started building the app, this little application didn't exist, called Ionic View. So what Ionic View allows you to do is to actually, instead of previewing the application in an emulator, you can actually preview it on your phone. And they made it as dumb simple as possible.
Nice.
The developer of the application sends you an invite, invites you to preview the app. You get an email. You click on the email, you log in, you register, whatever. And then out of nowhere, boom, it's just on your phone, like inside of the Ionic View app. So I open up the Ionic View app, and it has a list of all of my applications. I then click on the one I want to look at, and then boom, there's the app. So really easy way to A, preview, B, test,
C,
share,
present.
I don't know. Present, yeah, present's a good one. Present the application on the actual device as opposed to just looking at it in like a Chrome extension or an emulator or something like that. You know, it's more meaningful on the actual device.
Right. You have it in your hand.
So yeah, Ionic View, free, from a company called Drifty, and they're extremely responsive on Twitter. I will
really
tell
important.
you, yeah, if you mention them in the announcement of this particular podcast, they will like it or favorite it or retweet it or what have you.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
I will. Mine is, again, I'm going to make you spend some money. Maybe not. Now you're going to resist me and not spend the money, but I know within like...
I will spend $0.
I spent within... It's not Madden, because then I know you spend a lot of money on Madden. Amazing how the season's over and you don't play it anymore.
Are you kidding? I play it every day.
You still play it every day?
Every day. I'm so hooked.
Oh my God.
I quit our league. I joined a new league because nobody in our league played anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm in a new league now. I'm not even in your league.
I don't even play
I have
anymore.
so many good players. Oh my goodness.
All right, put it
I
down.
dominate.
All right, so this actually came up from a discussion we had. You made a pick. I think someone sent us an app called Authy, right? Authy. So, and this is an app that has been talked about forever. Basically, I've known about this app for
Isn't this a Merlin man?
everybody loves this app. I have owned this for over a year, and I've never used it because I just couldn't I couldn't figure out what it was that was doing for me. I have my password system. I don't know what it is. Or it's like it works for me, and I'm like, why do I need this? Well, I figured it out. And the way I figured it out was a scenario that you and I, so we both use two-factor on Salesforce. One of the limitations of two-factor on Salesforce is that you have it it's on your phone. You, the other day, dropped your phone and broke it. Sorry. Little showing of the whatever. And you then couldn't two-factor it because your phone was the only thing that was on, and I had to go in and turn off your two-factor so you could get into our Salesforce org. And I was thinking, like, Authy, that sounds good because then you can sync it back and forth. And I was like, I should give Authy a try. And then all of a sudden, this app, 1Password, which has been around forever and is really well known and really well loved, in one of their release notes or something I saw, it's like their new version, it said, we now support two-factor generation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, really? And I went, ooh.
So not only, wow.
So
okay.
now it's time for me to go take a look at this again and figure out why everybody loves this thing and why should I love it. So I started with the scenario of what I want, which is I want to be able to have two-factor in many places. I set it up. It synchronizes through Dropbox or other places, iCloud, whatever, and I have it on my phone, on my iPad, and on my desktop. And you can boot it up and go two-factor, hit copy, paste, boom, you're in. All of a sudden saves you time. You don't have to have your phone anymore to log in two-factor because you have it under.
So that's the two-factor piece, but what is the 1Password piece part of it?
So the thing is, when you install it, it then installs on your desktop. It installs extensions in your browsers.
All of my browsers?
Chrome, Safari, Firefox.
Okay.
It then, as you manage your passwords, you log into place, it then says, hey, do you want to save this?
Oh.
You say yes. It then synchronizes that. It's then locked under a master password, but then as an extension, you can go click log into ADP site. Boom, and you go log in instantly.
So does it sit in like the system tray at the top or whatever?
It does that too, and it sits on your Safari.
Oh, it sits in the browser.
And here,
it's in the browser.
It provides its own browser. So if you were thinking, wow,
Really?
I never want to log into that ADP. I'm giving ADP as an example because it's like, like our 401k. Like, oh, I don't want to log in 401k. I can't get it because I don't know. Oh, no. With this, you go boom, boom, click in. And it will generate the password for you when you go to log in. So when you first go set it up, it'll say what password you want. You just go, give me 1,700 characters. Fine. The highest password ever. Because you never have to see it or know it ever again because it synchronizes to everything. You click it, it's in, and you can log into everything.
That's a little scary for me. I'm got to be honest. Like not knowing my password.
Don't know it.
That's a little frightening.
I know.
Just because.
But it's secure.
What if this? Yeah, but what if this thing doesn't work one day? like all of a sudden it just stops working
it's
or whatever.
Totally a trust thing. I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
Like I just like to know that I know my
that's
passwords.
why I've started with this and started just doing it with a couple sites. I've put in the passwords that I have, and as you go
I'm
putting
probably
yours,
just being very naive because I know lots and lots of people use this thing.
Yeah.
I just
And
worry
for
like with the
years.
like, the syncing. Like, what if?
But if you don't know your password, then you have to reset it. Then they send it to you anyway.
Yes.
And
Does
then
it
you
reset?
Well, no, you would go to the website and reset it. But the point is, so first of all, there's two apps, and you have to buy them both. It's
I feel like we
like
were trying to keep this to a half hour, and it's definitely an hour.
It's you just hit an hour, 20 minutes, an hour. Anyway, that is there are tons of features. It can keep social information, like it can keep credit cards. It can keep all sorts of stuff.
Credit cards.
I'm just trying
Wow.
it with passwords. The syncing works great. Having it on multiple places. It has Touch ID, so
I like that.
It's even more secure on your phone because you have to get Touch ID to get into it. It remembers where you were.
I love mobile apps that have Touch ID,
there's
by
a lot
the
of
way.
them. But listen, it remembers where you were last on your phone. So when you go into the app and you click it, it brings you right back to that place that's generating
really?
that password for the one that you need, because it's only the one you need most often.
Right.
It is very good.
How much does it cost? What's
I
the
have
deal?
no idea.
Well, we're supposed to know these things before
Well,
you
you're
pick
supposed
them.
to do a lot of things, but let me go look it up. I think
Wait, so when I buy it, is it completely universal, or am I
So when
buying
you
this
buy
for
the-
my desktop and my mobile?
Well, there is nothing that's
Well,
universal
the
to
Apple
both.
needs to fix that.
Well, that's just
ridiculous.
That's not gonna happen.
Just ridiculous. Fix that.
I don't know how much because I bought it. I can't see the price.
What is your pick? The desktop version or the mobile
Both.
version?
It's just kind of like having the This is kind of like having OmniFocus that synchronizes. Like this synchronizes. I think you need the desktop because the desktop saves you. But when you do it here and it shows up on your other device, and again you have to log into it, you have master password. It is really, really good. And I've only put like 6 or 7 passwords into it. I can tell you that this is going to be my new password manager. No more Evernote. No more putting passcodes and all stuff. I'm gonna start trusting it. I'm gonna start generating.
Is this by Agile Bits?
Yes. How much is it?
I'm on their website right now, the store. So they have bundles. They have 1Password for Mac is $50.
Right. I think I got it through some sort of whatever. But okay.
There's a thing called Knox for Mac. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And there's 1Password for iOS and for Google or for Android and Google Play, but they don't have a price.
Because you have to click
it.
on them to go to the price.
Okay.
So I went to the Google Play just to see what they wanted.
Free on iOS.
Oh.
So basically, you're buying it. They made it as such. It is kind of cross-platform. If you want to think about it, you pay for it once you get it.
Well, and
everywhere.
here's the other thing: it's cross-platform. So if you're a Google
if
Android
you're an
user,
and
but
a Mac
you have
user,
a Mac
or a Windows user, it's got Windows too.
and I like that a little bit because what happens in 2 years? I want to my password. I want to give up Mac and go to Windows. I mean, I can't imagine. But wow, this fanboy can then take all his passwords and everything he's worked in 1Password for 4 years and work. Anyway, it's pretty cool. I jumped. I thought it was too expensive. I think I got it through. I don't remember when. I just bought it. I've owned it for so long and I've never used it. I think within probably a month, I will say I don't know how I lived without it. It's really, really good, especially at generating and keeping it. So anyway, that's my pick. It's 1Password by Agile Bits. It's $50, I guess, on the platform, and then you can get the free ones on the side. I don't know how that works. But it does all that stuff and does the generation. But again, the first time you go in and log into Salesforce on your desktop and you just click a little button and copy it and put it in, you're going to be like, oh, that's worth it. Because you literally just save yourself like 10, 13 seconds a shot. All right. That's the end of our podcast. We went over an hour. Sorry, kids. Follow Justin at Justin Edelstein. Follow me at Jason and Matwood. Follow Arkus at Arkus Inc. Facebook.com/Arkus Inc. Success Community Group, we're there. LinkedIn, we're there. Google+, we're there until they shut it down. Subscribe and review in iTunes and in Stitcher. That's Justin. This is Jason saying, as always, enjoy those cloudy days.